Listen now to the book, One Night with the Hybrid King, written by the author Anya Curves. If you want to buy the ebook, link in the description. Subscribe to the channel. Like and share. Chapter 136, Caelum. I stand frozen, unable to tear my gaze away from the scene of agony before me. Aria is kneeling over Alexander's lifeless body, her arms clutching him as if her sheer will could pull him back to life. Her sobs echo in the air, piercing my soul like gunshots. She weeps uncontrollably, each cry laced with a pain so profound it seems to reverberate across the ravaged battlefield around us. The chaos that once ruled the battlefield begins to fade. Malicious creatures dissolve into shadows, vanishing into the air with piercing howls, as though the universe itself is dragging them back into the void from which they came. Malachar has been banished to the Forbidden Realm, and the darkness he brought with him begins to yield to a faint gray light. Despite the victorious cries erupting around me, celebrating the end of torment, my focus remains fixed on the scene before me. I hear nothing but Aria's sobs and the muffled thudding of my own heartbeat, as if the entire world has been suspended in this singular moment. I move forward slowly, each step heavy, deliberate. With every movement, I watch Aria's face. Her gaze is locked on Alexander, her eyes filled with a despair I have never seen before. When I finally come close enough to touch her, she recoils and growls, like a beast guarding what she holds most dear. I can't leave him. No, I can't, she mutters between sobs, her voice almost childlike, broken. She clings to Alexander's body with a strength that feels almost otherworldly, as if he might slip away from her at any moment. I swallow hard, a lump forming in my throat. We'll take him home, Aria, I say, gathering as much caution as I can into my voice. Even to my ears, my words sound distant, muffled by the weight of the atmosphere around us. I kneel beside them, feeling the rough, battle-scarred ground beneath my knees. Gently, I try to pull Alexander's body from her arms. Aria resists, holding him tighter. But after a few moments of hesitation, she relents, her hand still clutching his cold, lifeless hand, as if that alone could keep him close. I lift Alexander's body into my arms, and the weight of him feels heavier than it should, more than just physical. He is no longer just a man. He has become the embodiment of a loss that Aria will never fully recover from. At my side, Aria continues to sob, her steps faltering as she follows me. Each tear that falls from her eyes feels like a blow to my own heart, and I loathe myself for being unable to ease her pain. With a firm voice, I command one of the enchantress soldiers to open a portal back to Veridiana. The portal's magic briefly illuminates the devastated surroundings, and the transition to the castle is almost instantaneous. But the weight of tragedy remains unchanged. As we arrive, the castle's grand hall is filled with physicians and staff, their faces etched with worry and exhaustion. But Aria doesn't let anyone come near. She growls again, a primal sound that wards off anyone who dares approach Alexander's body. Left with no other choice, I carry Alexander to the infirmary. Aria walks beside me, gripping his hand tightly. Tears still stream down her face, now silent, as if her grief is transformed into something even deeper, quieter, and more devastating. Aria, I say softly, trying to reach through the wall of her pain. They need to tend to Alexander's body. I promise they won't harm him. She looks at me with eyes that no longer seem like her own. There's a fog of denial and anguish clouding her gaze. Even so, after a moment of hesitation, she takes a trembling step back, allowing the physicians to approach. I take her hand in mine, guiding her gently out of the infirmary. Her body trembles uncontrollably, and every step seems like an unbearable effort. I guide her to sit on the bed in her room, her body rocking back and forth as though caught in a trance, unable to process everything that has happened. Her hands grip her knees tightly, and she murmurs something inaudible to herself. Prepare a sedative for her. I order the ladies in waiting outside the door. My voice is firm, but inside, a storm of emotions rages. I glance at Aria one last time before leaving the room, knowing that leaving her like this tears me apart, but there are still matters I must address. I return to Syltirion, where the air remains thick with the scent of blood and destruction. Bodies are scattered across the ground, and the triage of the wounded is already underway. Reports of the dead come in, each name a grim reminder of the cost we paid for this bitter victory. I find Seraphina's body lying at the foot of a crumbling staircase. Seeing her end in such a tragic manner stirs a pang of sorrow in my heart. Flashes of the early years of our marriage flicker in my memory, moments of goodness that won't be erased by the hatred and bitterness of these final days. May you find peace, my mate, wherever you are, I say solemnly, my voice heavy with regret. The days crawl by like a thick, unrelenting fog, and Alexander's funeral finally takes place in the lowlands, a place surrounded by rolling green hills and ancient trees that seem to hold centuries of memories within their gnarled branches. Aria is unrecognizable, moving like a shadow. She barely seems alive. Her gaze, once filled with determination and stubbornness, is now hollow. Two lifeless brown orbs that barely blink. Tears stream down her face endlessly. Every step she takes seems impossibly heavy, as if the earth beneath her is trying to swallow her whole. There's no spark, no life in her, only a ghostly presence wandering among the living, as though waiting for a call to join the other side. The twins arrive from Syltirion for the funeral, but even their return cannot break through the wall of sorrow surrounding Aria. When Thorn and Aloan step into the viewing hall, their little eyes searching for their mother, she only glances up briefly. There's no glimmer of joy or recognition in her face. The entire procession, from the viewing to the burial, is marked by an oppressive silence, broken only by Aria's soft sobs and those of Alexander's family, my aunt and uncle. Lyra stays by Aria's side the entire time, trying her best to comfort her with tissues and occasional embraces, but nothing seems to penetrate the shell of grief encasing her. Aloan approaches me, her small voice hesitant. Will Mommy be okay? Aloan asks quietly at my side. Yes, my dear, I reply, crouching down to her level. I take her cold little hands in mine. She just needs a little time, all right? Sometimes, when we're very sad, we need some time to remember how to smile again. Aloan nods shyly, though her expression is uncertain. Thorn remains silent, observing everything with a seriousness far beyond his years. In moments like this, he resembles Aria so much that it hurts. Throughout the funeral, he holds his mother's hand whenever he can, as though his quiet presence is an anchor for her. But Aria doesn't respond. Her body is here, but her mind seems lost somewhere unreachable. When the funeral finally ends and the attendees begin to disperse, leaving only me, the children, Lyra, and Aria, she remains frozen before Alexander's grave. Lyra, can you take the kids for some ice cream, please? I'll stay here with Aria a little longer. Lyra nods, taking Aloan and Thorn's hands as she leads them away. I watch them disappear over the horizon, leaving behind the silent field and Aria's still figure. I approach carefully, saying nothing, respecting the silence that feels almost sacred. We stand there side by side in silence. There's no need for words. Aria's pain is tangible, and I know anything I say would feel insignificant against the weight of her grief. Do you want to go home now, Aria? I suggest softly. She lifts her head, startled, as if only now realizing I'm there. What did you say? Her voice is hoarse, barely audible, her face etched with exhaustion. If you're ready to go home, I repeat gently, my gaze steady on hers. Aria nods and turns her body. Once again, I guide her toward the car, as though she were a ghost among the living. Do you want to go to your house or back to the castle? I ask, concerned. Aria doesn't answer. She stares out the window with lost eyes, as if she doesn't even hear the question. In the end, I decide to take her back to the castle. As soon as we arrive, she steps out of the car without a word and walks toward her room. The sound of her footsteps echoes through the empty hallways, and when the door to her room closes behind her, an overwhelming weight settles in my chest. Later, the children return, animated, talking about the ice cream and toys at the park. Their laughter brightens the room for a brief moment, but Aria's absence still hangs over us all. Is Mommy feeling better? Aloan asks, hope in her voice. Not yet, my dear. Let's give her a little more time. Maybe by dinner, all right? I reply sweetly. The children nod and run down the hall, their laughter echoing through the castle. Lyra approaches me with a worried expression, her hands intertwined in a gesture of anxiety. I think Aria will need a lot of help now, Your Majesty, Lyra says with sorrow. She's never allowed herself before. Allowed herself to do what? I ask, my curiosity mixed with concern. To suffer, Your Majesty, Lyra replies sadly. When Aria's father died, she was about 9 or 10, I can't quite remember. From that moment on, she took charge of everything. When Alexander broke up with her, Aria cried, and then she went right back to work because we had bills to pay. When she found out about the pregnancy and went looking for him, but couldn't find him, she didn't have time to grieve that misfortune either. Aria's always had to take care of everything and everyone. Now that Your Majesty is here, taking care of the children, I believe my daughter is finally allowing herself to feel the pain. Chapter 137 Caelum. The dining room is illuminated by candles delicately placed on the long oak table. Eloan, with her golden curls shimmering under the light, lifts her curious eyes from her plate to look at me. Her sweet voice breaks the silence. Isn't Mommy going to have dinner with us? Eloan asks, curious. Lyra and I exchange quick, knowing, worried glances above the table. I try to find the right answer, something that will ease her concern without fully exposing the weight of the situation. No, my princess. She's tired, maybe tomorrow, I say gently, leaning slightly forward, so my voice reaches Eloan like a comforting whisper. Eloan seems to accept the answer with a small nod, returning her focus to her plate. For her and Thorn, the war and the loss of Alexander seem like distant events, like a bad dream that has already begun to fade from memory. Their understanding of death is still superficial, almost innocent. They felt Alexander's absence, of course, but the depth of mourning, the weight of a final goodbye, doesn't yet have full meaning in their young minds. Lyra and I make an effort to keep the conversation light during dinner. We talk about the toys from the park, the flowers the children picked the day before, and even invent funny stories about dragons stealing ice cream. For fleeting moments, the twins' cheerful laughter fills the emptiness of the hall, but behind every smile of mine, there's an echo of concern. After dinner, the routine continues, but there's a palpable emptiness as I head up to the children's rooms. It's a bitter and painful contrast. We used to do this together, Aria and me. She had a special way of calming the twins, her sweet voice enveloping them in lullabies or stories that seemed to have the magical power to banish any fear. Now, the silence in her absence is almost deafening. In Thorn and Eloan's room, I read a story about a brave princess who faces magical wolves to save her kingdom. My voice is steady, but inside, every word reminds me that I am here alone. When the twins finally fall asleep, their small bodies relaxed and their breaths calm, a knot forms in my throat. The joy of putting them to bed is tinged with an inevitable sadness. With silent steps, I walk through the corridors to Aria's room. I knock gently on the door, but there's no response. I enter carefully and find her lying on her back to me, her hair spread out on the pillow like a black river. The room is shrouded in dim light, the only illumination coming from a lamp casting light on the tray of food left by the maidservants. The dishes remain untouched on the coffee table. Aria, I call, my voice soft and hesitant. She doesn't move. Only her slow, irregular breathing indicates she's awake. I try again. There's food here. Aren't you hungry? No. Her voice is a broken whisper, so fragile it feels like it could disappear with the next wind that blows through the windows. Realizing there's no space to insist, I take the tray and leave the room. The corridor is empty and quiet, except for the soft rustling of my clothes as I move. There, I find Lyra, her tired expression reflecting mine. How long will she stay like this? I ask, not hiding the dread in my voice. Lyra shrugs, unsure how to answer. Is there a time limit for losing a husband? She counters my question. How long did it take for you to overcome your mourning? I ask in a quieter tone, almost fearing the answer. Mourning comes in waves. It never truly leaves. We learn not to drown in those waves. Aria will need to learn. It will be good for her to have someone to help her, Your Majesty. I just don't know how to do this, I confess honestly. My wife also died, but I had considered her my ex-wife for a long time. What Aria and Alexander had. How am I supposed to help her get over that? Lyra gently and tenderly pats my shoulder. With patience and being there for her. That's all, Your Majesty. Later, in the dead of night, I am awakened by screams that tear through the silence of the castle like thunder. It's Aria's voice, sharp and desperate. I leap from the bed, my heart pounding in my chest, and run to her room, crossing the hallways as if the floor itself were on fire. When I reach the door, I see Aria thrashing in bed, still trapped in sleep. The moonlight shines through the windows, illuminating her sweaty brow. She screams Alexander's name, her voice choked with the pain and terror of a nightmare that feels more real than life itself. Aria, wake up. It's just a nightmare. Wake up, I shout, climbing onto the bed and grabbing her arms. Her claws instinctively appear, tearing through my skin in uncontrolled movements. I ignore the pain, focused solely on waking her. Suddenly, she jolts awake, her wide eyes filled with tears and despair. Her body is tense, her breath ragged, as if she had just escaped drowning. I keep seeing his face bleeding and twisted, she says, crying, clinging to me with all her might. She dissolves into tears, her body trembling as she holds onto me like I am her only anchor. I hold her tightly, pulling her into my lap, wrapping my arms around her. I rock her slowly, murmuring soft, comforting words that I can barely form through my own whirlwind of emotions. It was just a nightmare. It's okay, I whisper in her ear, my voice carrying a tenderness I hope will reach her amidst her internal chaos. My hand moves through her hair in slow, comforting motions, feeling the softness of the strands now damp with sweat. Aria continues to cry, her sobs gradually fading into a heavy, uneven breath. Eventually, I feel her body relax in my arms, her weight becoming more apparent as sleep consumes her. I stay still, my chest still pressed against her back, continuing to stroke her hair. Sleep doesn't come easily for me. My mind refuses to settle, wandering between worries and faint hopes. This becomes a cycle, night after night. For an entire month, her screams tear me from deep sleep. I run down the hallway to Aria's room, always ready to fight against her invisible demons. She thrashes, cries, screams, and I hold her. Always. During the day, she isolates herself in her room. The once welcoming and lively space now feels like a prison to her. The curtains remain closed, keeping the room bathed in a constant twilight. The food tray, delivered by the ladies-in-waiting, returns almost untouched every time. Her presence is a reflection of her mind, empty, distant, and dark. I try to cheer her up in every way I can think of. I bring the twins to her, hoping their laughter and stories will bring some light back to her eyes. But Aria, always so warm and welcoming with the children, now responds with weak, empty smiles that fool no one. Aloan and Thorn notice. They don't fully understand, but they can sense something is wrong. And the physical change begins to show. She barely eats, and her body reflects this alarmingly. Her once vibrant curves are now thinner, almost fragile. Her olive skin, which always carried a natural glow, now looks dull, losing the vitality that made her so unique. Dark circles appear under her eyes, signs of sleepless nights. On one particularly frustrating afternoon, I find myself with Lyra in the main hall, where the crackling fire does nothing to warm my growing anxiety. She's wasting away like this, I declare with a mix of desperation and anger I can't contain. What are we supposed to do? Lyra, usually calm, now seems as restless as I am. She takes a deep breath before responding. Your Majesty, we've tried everything. The children, taking her to walk in the garden, nothing worked. I'm worried too, but I have no idea what else we can try. Desperation grows within me like a flame fueled by the wind. Every failed attempt seems to deepen the hole in which Aria is trapped. I want to pull her out of it, but I don't know how. Then, one early morning, something changes. After another nightmare, I'm beside her, holding her as I always do. Still trembling, Aria finally stops screaming, but this time something catches my attention. A sound, almost imperceptible, but clear enough to make my heart stop for a moment. Aria, can you hear that? I whisper, my voice heavy with concern and surprise. She lifts her head from my chest, her eyes still watery. Hear what? My hand instinctively moves to her stomach. I focus, filtering out any other noise, until I hear it again. A heartbeat. Small, but steady. Is that a heart? She murmurs, her eyes wide, as if afraid to believe what's happening. I think so, I reply, my voice mixed with surprise and an unexpected joy. I think you're pregnant. For a moment, the silence in the room feels almost sacred. Aria places her hands on her stomach, which still shows no visible signs of life, but she caresses it gently. We stay there, still, trying to catch that delicate, rhythmic sound once more. Will you come with me tomorrow? She asks, her voice soft, almost a whisper. Her vulnerability strikes me like a blow, and I feel the weight of her words. Of course. To the doctor? I ask, trying not to show the sudden excitement bubbling within me. She nods slightly, and I pull her closer. For the first time in weeks, I notice something new in her eyes. It's not hope yet, but maybe it's a beginning. A first step to escaping the shadows that have surrounded her. Chapter 138, Caelum. The office is small, with white walls that reflect the cold, impersonal light of the fluorescent bulbs. Aria is lying on an exam table covered by a paper sheet, which crinkles softly under her weight. Her stomach is exposed, the brown skin contrasting with the sterile environment around her. Her expression is stoic, but her eyes carry a deep exhaustion. The blood tests confirm the pregnancy quickly. 6 weeks. The news hits me like an electric shock to my system. I feel a whirlwind of emotions, excitement, surprise, maybe even a bit of fear, all mixed together and hard to process. I try to contain the happiness, aware that the baby isn't mine, but I can't help it. A smile involuntarily forms on my face. Aria, on the other hand, remains expressionless. Her eyes are fixed on some distant point, as if she's trapped in her own thoughts. She doesn't react, doesn't smile, or show any trace of joy. It cuts me, but I know her time is different from mine. How about we see how our little bun is doing in the oven? The doctor suggests, his voice upbeat, trying to ease the tension in the room. He takes the ultrasound device and applies the cold gel to Aria's stomach. My anxiety grows as I look at the ultrasound screen. At first, all I see are gray and black blobs that make no sense. I try to interpret what's there, but it seems like an impossible puzzle. Here it is. It's tiny, but it looks healthy, the doctor declares, pointing to a small blur on the screen. The world seems to stop in that moment. My eyes fill with tears as I see that tiny spot, which to anyone else might mean nothing, but to me, it means everything. The emotion overwhelms me, squeezing my chest in an almost painful way. Aria reacts. Her cold hand grips mine tightly. When I look at her, I see her eyes glistening, tears shining under the white light of the office. It's a flash of the Aria I knew, the Aria I love, even though she still feels so distant. She's here now. I bring her hand to my lips and kiss it gently, wanting her to feel what words can't convey. When a small smile forms on her lips, something inside me warms, lighting up the emptiness I've been feeling. What do we need to do, doctor? I ask with determination, my voice firm, but filled with expectation. The doctor starts listing everything: Aria's diet, supplements, essential care. He talks about rest, hydration, and the need to reduce stress. I absorb every word like a sponge, mentally noting everything he says. Aria, however, only listens and nods slightly. Her mind still seems distant. When we leave the office, the hallway light is warmer, but no less intense. I'm restless, my mind full of possibilities and ideas. Want to stop by the stores to pick out the baby's things? I ask thoughtfully. Better not, huh? We still don't know the baby's sex. Caelum, Aria calls me softly. Yes? Are you feeling nauseous? Do you want to sit down? I ask, concerned, already guiding Aria to a bench in the hallway. Caelum breathes. She orders firmly the first time in ages. I'm fine. It's not the first time I've been pregnant, remember? The reminder makes me laugh nervously. She's right. I nod in agreement, embarrassed by my excitement. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, it's just that I never, was there for the twins' pregnancy. I got carried away. I reply a bit sheepishly. Aria sighs, and for a moment, her shoulders relax. It's fine. Thank you for coming with me to the appointment, Aria responds. I still don't feel ready to do all of this again. I thought the twins, their pregnancy, would be the first and last. I hold Aria's hand and gently stroke it. Aria, you don't have to go through all of this alone. I'm here with you. I can stand by you for whatever you need. Caelum, the baby isn't even yours. None of this is your responsibility, Aria replies reluctantly. I shake my head quickly. Aria, I don't care about that. Alexander never cared about it either when he took care of the twins. I bet he'd want this, don't you think? I ask gently. Her eyes well up with tears again, and before she can respond, I pull her into a hug. I feel her arms wrap around me, and her face nestles against my chest. What if this pain never goes away? Caelum? What if I can't keep the promise I made to him? Aria asks through her sobs, her arms clutching me tightly. Her crying is muffled, but the strength of her grip speaks louder than words. I hold her tighter, determined to be the pillar she needs, even as I'm still trying to figure out how to be that for her. Don't think like that, Aria. It's only been a month. My voice is soft, almost a whisper, as I try to comfort her. My tone is gentle but firm, searching for any part of her that's still willing to listen. The pain may never fully go away, but I'm sure it will ease. Aria doesn't respond immediately. Her face buries itself deeper into my chest, her shoulders trembling under the weight of tears she can't hold back. Silent drops fall, soaking the fabric of my shirt. My hand moves gently over her back, tracing slow circles in a gesture I hope brings some comfort. Her muscles are taut, as though she's carrying an unbearable weight, but I don't stop. I keep going, offering all the solace I can muster in this sea of sorrow. Even with the news of the pregnancy, Aria isn't the same anymore. The vibrant spark that used to light up her eyes has been extinguished, replaced by a persistent shadow. Alexander still lingers in every corner of her mind, a constant presence keeping her trapped. Night after night, the nightmares persist. Screams jolt me awake in an instant, pulling me to her room before I even realize I've moved. Now the morning sickness is adding to the emotional toll. Barely has the sun risen when Aria is already running to the bathroom. I stay by her side, holding her hair and offering water when the relief finally comes. Afterward, I tidy up the bed and leave a tray of food nearby, trying everything I can to convince her to eat. These moments lead to friction. For every plate I insist she finishes, there's a heated argument. For the baby, Aria, I say impatiently, pushing the plate toward her. Do you want it to be born looking like a twig? She glares at me, her eyes flashing with a glimmer of the woman still fighting to resurface. No, but if you don't get that plate out of my face, I'll shove a twig up your ass, Caelum. Aria growls, furious. How hard, Aria? I tease with humor. She exhales sharply, frustrated, but eventually gives in, picking up the fork reluctantly. It's not much, but it's a small step forward. It's only in the 6th month of her pregnancy that I notice a real change. It's not abrupt, but like a wave slowly retreating, leaving something lighter behind. One night, I wake not to the usual screams but to a different sound, a soft whisper near my bed. Caelum, Aria's voice is low, almost tentative, near my bedside. I wake instantly, sitting up in bed. Aria? What's wrong? Are you okay? Is the baby okay? My words tumble out in a worried rush, and my hand instinctively moves to her belly, as if that alone could ensure everything is fine. She hesitates for a moment, her eyes searching mine. We're okay, she replies, her voice soft, almost shy. I just wanted to know, can I sleep here tonight? Her eyes glimmer under the faint light of the bedside lamp. They're filled with something I can't immediately place. It's not sadness, but it's not exactly comfort either. It's vulnerability. I blink, surprised by her request, but quickly nod in agreement. She moves around the bed and lies down beside me. The curve of her belly, now clearly visible, presses gently against me as she settles in. Her movements are cautious, almost hesitant. Her head finds its place on my chest, and I feel her warmth seep into my skin. Did something happen? I ask, my concern lingering, even though this moment feels calmer than the ones before. I didn't have nightmares tonight, she murmurs, as if saying it too loudly might undo the fragile peace. Relief washes over me instantly. I wrap my arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer. My chin rests on the top of her head as I take a deep breath, catching the subtle scent of her hair. That's good, Aria. I'm glad, I say with genuine warmth. Me too, she replies, her voice a little steadier but still tinged with caution. But when I woke up to throw up, I couldn't fall back asleep. And, I don't know, I like how you help me sleep again. That's what I'm here for, I respond with a hint of humor. She sighs, and for the first time in what feels like forever, I sense a small part of her tension ease. Thank you, she says, and this time, I know she truly means it. Chapter 139, Caelum. What do you want for your birthday? I ask the twins as soon as they get home from school. Their eyes, identical in shape, but so different in personality, light up in unison at the question. They exchange a conspiratorial glance, and before even giving me a proper answer, they flash matching grins and shout together. A dragon. The excitement in their voices is so convincing that, for a moment, I almost believe it's a real possibility. Aria and I can't hold back our laughter. Her laugh is light and infectious, like a warm breeze sweeping through the room. She's sitting in her favorite rocking chair, the soft fabric of her sweatshirt stretching gently over the prominent curve of her 7-month pregnant belly. The baby stirs occasionally, as if responding to the controlled chaos that always seems to surround our family. The glow she once had has been slowly returning, day by day. The nightmares have lessened. I can now count on one hand the nights I've woken to her screams. She's back to soothing the kids beside me and joining us at the table for meals. Well, your birthday party is just a few hours away. Do you think a dragon will show up by then? Aria teases, humor lacing her voice. This only makes them even more excited about the party. The castle has been buzzing with preparations for the twin celebration, their favorite characters' decorations spread across the halls leading to the grand ballroom. Yes, they shout with absolute certainty. Perfect. But for the dragon to show up, you need to be clean and dressed up. Go to your room and take a bath. Your guests will be here soon, Aria says, her tone firm, yet filled with the gentleness only a mother can manage. They dash down the corridor like a hurricane, giggles and hurried footsteps echoing through the high-ceilinged halls. Aria watches them go, her eyes gleaming with that mix of love and exhaustion only a mother knows. I step closer, offering her a hand to help her stand. Do you happen to know any dragons? She asks, humor glinting in her voice as she raises an eyebrow. Unfortunately, all the ones I know don't exist, so I'll have to improvise, I reply with a laugh. That's what I thought. But you know what I do know, Duchess Aria? I ask, a playful edge in my voice. Aria arches an eyebrow, already suspicious of what I'm about to say. A doctor who could tell me what kind of bun is baking in this oven. My hand moves to her belly, resting there gently. The baby chooses that exact moment to stir, and the small movement enchants me, as it always does. Aria rolls her eyes, but her expression is as soft as silk. Caelum, she says my name in a warning tone, as if she were talking to one of the twins. I follow her as she begins walking toward the children's room. Her steps are slow and careful, each movement filled with a grace that only she possesses, even with the weight of her growing belly. Come on, what's the harm in finding out now if it's a boy or a girl? I ask, matching her measured pace. I want it to be a surprise, she replies. We don't need to know everything, Your Majesty. But sometimes it's good to stay informed, Duchess. This little game between us, where we use our noble titles purely to tease each other, never fails to bring out smiles. Aria looks at me for a moment, and then, with a graceful touch of childishness, sticks her tongue out at me. It's her way of ending the discussion, for now at least. I watch as she steps into the children's room, the lively sounds of laughter and excited chatter already filling the air. The castle, as vast and imposing as it may be, feels small and cozy when filled with moments like these. They're 6 years old already. How did time pass so quickly? Lyra remarks, her voice tinged with nostalgia. She watches the twins playing with the other children in the center of the grand hall, where the soft light of the setting sun filters through the castle's tall windows, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls adorned with decorations. Aria, seated beside me, offers a faint smile. Her gaze follows the children's movements, capturing every laugh, every gesture. She seems calmer, more whole than she's been in months, though she still carries a shadow that hasn't completely lifted. One hand instinctively and tenderly rests on the curve of her swollen belly, caressing it with gentle strokes. This has been such a long year, don't you think? Aria comments, her fingers moving slowly, as if tracing the future across her skin. So many things have happened. I shift in my chair, crossing my arms as I take in the scene around us. The party is exactly what the twins dreamed of, vibrant, colorful, and magical. The grand hall has been transformed into a fantastical world, with colorful banners, shimmering streamers, and enchanted figures flitting about the corners. The real dragon they wished for was replaced by an enchanted plush dragon, twice their size. The creature moves and lets out dragon-like roars, sending waves of excitement through the children. But even amidst all this joy, my mind drifts to Aria. It feels as though more than a year has passed since she came back into my life. Yet the impact of her presence is as profound as the day we reunited. Loving Aria has always been a test of patience and resilience. At the start, it was torture, like walking through a storm without knowing if the sun would ever break the horizon. But watching her now, I realized the wait was necessary, almost like a trial I had to endure. The man I was when I first met her would never have been enough to love her the way she deserves. I was selfish, arrogant, consumed by the crown and my obsession with heirs, unable to see beyond my own kingdom. Alexander, on the other hand, had always been the better choice for her. He was her first love, the man who taught her to trust and love genuinely. And that's okay, because I want to be her last. And if that means waiting, respecting her time, then I'll wait, no matter how long it takes. Lady Lyra, I need your help here. Please. I interrupt my own thoughts, turning to her with a conspiratorial smile. Don't you think it'd be much better to know the baby's gender before it's born? Aria rolls her eyes and gives me a playful punch on the arm. Lyra laughs, nodding her agreement. Absolutely, Your Majesty. After all, my dear, you found out it was twins when you were expecting them. Why all this suspense now? Lyra teases. Because it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl, as long as it's healthy. That's all that matters, Aria responds firmly. I narrow my eyes at her. Her words falter slightly, revealing there's another reason behind her desire to remain in the dark. Your Majesty, I'm sorry, but there's no changing her mind. I'm afraid you're on your own with this one, Lyra declares before leaving the table. Silence falls between us for a few moments as we both enjoy the sounds of the celebration and the joy surrounding us. What's the real reason, Aria? I finally ask, my voice quiet but serious. She exhales a long sigh, turning her face toward me. Her eyes meet mine, and in them, I see the shadows of grief, deep and unyielding, like a storm that refuses to fully subside. If Alexander won't ever know he had a child, then I shouldn't know the baby's gender either. It's the least I can do to honor him, Aria says, her voice heavy with emotion. I reach for her hand, intertwining our fingers gently. I feel the strength she's trying to project, but also the vulnerability spilling through the subtle pauses in her breath. Aria, you don't have to spend the rest of your life sacrificing yourself because you lost him. You wouldn't want that. I counsel softly, my voice heavy with sorrow. She doesn't respond but squeezes my hand, a gesture that speaks more than any words ever could. I let the silence settle between us, a silence laden with meaning and emotions that don't need to be voiced aloud. Together, we watch the celebration continue around us, surrounded by the laughter of children and the life that moves forward, even amidst the shadows we carry. Chapter 140 Caelum. I wake to someone calling my name, their voice heavy with urgency and warm hands shaking my shoulder insistently. It's Aria. The room is steeped in the dim light of dawn, the timid moonlight slipping through the partially open curtains and illuminating her tense, pain-stricken face. "Caelum, the baby's coming." Her voice trembles, breathless, as if every word is a struggle. My water broke. In an instant, my mind snaps fully awake, sleep abandoned as though it had never existed. I leap out of bed, my heart pounding as if I were about to charge into battle. My first instinct is to help her sit in the nearby chair, my hands steadying her arms with care, though my entire being is on high alert, focused solely on her and the baby's safety. "How far apart are the contractions?" I ask, striving to keep my voice calm, though the edge of worry is impossible to mask. Aria, still in her nightgown, can't answer immediately. Her body arches involuntarily, and a raw, visceral cry escapes her lips, gripping my chest with its intensity. The contraction is strong, a clear sign that this baby isn't going to wait much longer. Without hesitation, I scoop Aria into my arms and carry her to the car. "Good thing I had everything ready in advance, huh?" I say, attempting to lighten the mood, as I glance at the already installed car seat in the back and the hospital bag strategically placed by the door. "Gods, you're such a doting father," Aria mutters through gritted teeth, her humor a thin veil over the pain. "And proud of it," I reply, starting the car. The drive to the hospital feels like an eternity, every minute dragging as Aria's breathing fills the air, measured, yet frequently interrupted by soft cries of pain. Every red light feels like a personal affront, but my focus stays split between the road and her face, scanning for signs that I need to drive even faster. Finally, we arrive at the hospital. I barely manage to park before a team of nurses rushes to meet us. They place Aria in a wheelchair, but her hand grips my arm tightly, panic shining in her eyes. "You're coming with me," she says desperately. "I can't do this alone." I smile and follow her to the delivery room. The labor stretches on for hours, each second feeling like an eternity. Her screams slice through the air, mingling with the firm instructions of the medical staff. Her face glistens with sweat, hair plastered to her forehead, as she gives everything she has to bring our child into the world. I stand tense at her side, wishing I could do more than murmur words of encouragement, telling her she's doing amazing and that the baby is almost here. Aria swears at me and orders me to shut up multiple times, but I ignore her. I know it's just the hormones speaking. Then, finally, the sound we've been waiting for fills the room. A cry. Strong, loud, alive. My heart nearly stops, and I see Aria's body relax for a moment, as though a crushing weight has been lifted from her. "Congratulations to the new parents. It's a boy," the doctor announces, his smile spreading through the room like wildfire. When they place that tiny being in Aria's arms, the world seems to stand still. He's so small, so perfect. His skin is soft and pink, his tiny fists clenched, and his half-open eyes seem to search for something familiar. "Hey, my little prince." "Hi, I'm your mom." "Hi there, are you okay?" Aria murmurs, her voice soft and tender, like the whisper of a gentle breeze. Every word drips with love and awe, as though she's utterly mesmerized by the fragile life she cradles. The baby's cries, which had filled the room moments before, begin to subside, replaced by soft whimpers and restless movements. Her fingers trace invisible paths across his face, a blend of serenity and vulnerability etched into his delicate features. His round cheeks are faintly rosy, and his tiny hands open and close, as if already trying to grasp the world. Aria gazes at him with such profound love that my heart tightens and, at the same time, seems to swell in my chest. The moment is so pure, so complete, it feels like the very essence of love captured in time. "Have you chosen a name for him yet?" the doctor gently asks, breaking the moment with a soft reminder that the world still exists beyond this small universe we've created here. Aria lifts her gaze to mine, and for a brief second, there's something deeper in the exchange, something filled with meaning, memory, and promise. She smiles softly, but her eyes glimmer with a mixture of emotions, and I know she's already made her decision. "Alex. His name will be Alex," she replies, her voice full of love and tenderness. There's a delicate weight to her words, a tribute that fills the space between us with something intangible yet powerful. My cousin Alexander. His memory is a shadow that never truly leaves us. But in this moment, the name transforms into light, into hope. My heart warms, a radiance spreading from within, and all I can do is smile as I kiss the top of Aria's head, breathing in the faint scent of sweat mingled with the fresh aroma of the new life cradled in her arms. Gently, I wrap an arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer, not wanting to disrupt the bond between her and Alex, but longing to be part of it, even in a subtle way. You did an amazing job, I whisper in her ear, my voice heavy with emotion. Do you want to hold him? Aria asks softly, her voice carrying a tenderness that contrasts with the exhaustion evident in her tone. She's reclining on the bed, her hair tousled and her expression serene, though the traces of weariness still linger on her face. The private room we're in feels warm and inviting, with cream-colored walls and dark wooden furniture that lend a sense of calm to the space. Alex is cradled in her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket that shields him from the light chill of the air conditioning. He's clean now, dressed in a pale blue onesie adorned with tiny star patterns. His movements are slight, but each small shift carries a fragility that makes my chest tighten. He looks so tiny, so delicate, as if the world around him might crumble if we're not careful. I hesitate, staring at the little being with a mix of awe and apprehension. I'm not sure I should. Aria, he's so small, I murmur, feeling a knot of nervousness twist in my stomach. My hands feel too big, too clumsy to hold something so precious. Aria lets out a soft chuckle, her exhausted expression softening with a warm glimmer in her eyes. You won't hurt him, she reassures me, her words as comforting as her presence. Sit in the armchair, and I'll show you how to hold him. I obey, moving cautiously to the armchair beside the bed. My hands are still sweaty, but bit by bit, I muster the courage as Aria leans over carefully and places Alex in my arms. He's light, surprisingly light, but the weight of responsibility I feel while holding him is overwhelming. Alex stirs, his tiny arms shifting slightly before settling close to his face, and my entire body tenses in response. It's okay, he's just getting comfortable. Aria soothes, her tone gentle and steady. I take a deep breath, trying to relax. Slowly, Alex stops moving and becomes still again. His breathing is steady, creating a soothing rhythm that captivates me. His tiny chest rises and falls gently, and his hands, so impossibly small, rest relaxed near his face. Hey there, champ, I whisper to Alex. I'm Caelum, your dad's cousin. Did you know that? I've been looking forward to meeting you. Alex shifts his little face, almost imperceptibly, but it's enough to fill my heart with a tenderness I've never felt before. For a moment, it seems like he smiles, a faint movement that lights up every corner of my soul. It's such a simple thing, yet it hits me like a tidal wave of overwhelming emotion. Look at that, Aria remarks with evident joy, her eyes sparkling with pride and love. I think he recognized your voice. I gaze at Alex as though he's the most precious thing I've ever seen. There's something magical about this tiny being, something that transcends words. The sound of his small, rapid heartbeat feels like a melody echoing in my ears, a constant reminder of how fragile and resilient he is all at once. Caelum, Aria calls softly, her voice pulling me back from the little universe I've created around Alex. I lift my gaze to meet hers. There's something more in her eyes, something deep and full of meaning. Thank you for not giving up on me, she says, her voice thick with a mix of gratitude and emotion. My chest tightens, but in a good way, as if all my insecurities and doubts vanish in the moment she speaks those words. I smile at her, feeling a surge of determination rise within me. I never will, I reply firmly, my voice filled with sincerity.
Chapter 141, Aria. I watch as Caelum rocks Alex with such care and tenderness that it brings tears to my eyes. He cradles him as if holding the most precious treasure in the world, moving gently while humming a lullaby that seems to fill the entire room with an almost supernatural calm. The sound of his voice is soft and melodious, carrying a sweetness I didn't expect, making him all the more captivating. The atmosphere around us is warm and inviting. Alex's room is decorated in soft shades of blue and gray, with light wood furniture and a cozy armchair beside the crib. Small details, like the star-shaped mobile hanging above the crib and the shelves filled with children's books, make the space a haven of peace. My heart swells as I watch them together. Caelum has been more than I ever imagined. Throughout my pregnancy, he was my safe harbor, my rock amidst the waves of uncertainty and challenges surrounding me. Now, with Alex in his arms, he proves once again that he's everything my son and I need. At 4 months old, Alex is full of energy and fiercely battling sleep. He flails his tiny arms, his face scrunching up in a determined effort to stay awake. But Caelum, with his magical voice, sings in such a mesmerizing way that Alex doesn't stand a chance. Gradually, his movements slow until he finally gives in, closing his eyes and letting out a small, contented sigh. Caelum 1, Alex 0. I declare with humor, trying to stifle my laughter so as not to disturb the moment. Caelum raises an eyebrow challengingly and performs an exaggerated bow, holding Alex with both firmness and grace. He carefully lays Alex down in the crib, adjusting the blanket around him with such gentle precision that it makes me smile even more. Then, with an audible sigh, he flops onto the couch, and before I can even think about resisting, he pulls me down to sit beside him. We're both exhausted, and the fatigue weighs on us like a heavy blanket. "How many hours of sleep do you think we'll get tonight?" he asks, yawning so deeply that he barely finishes the sentence. "I'd wager half my kingdom it'll be 3 hours. I chuckle softly, covering my mouth to avoid making noise. "I'll bet a full bottle it'll be 3.5 hours. I tease, my voice dripping with mock optimism. Caelum extends his hand theatrically, and I grasp his fingers firmly. "Bet accepted, Duchess Aria." The couch, simple as it is, feels like the most comfortable place in the world right now. I rest my head on Caelum's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his body against mine. The room is quiet now, save for the soft hum of the baby monitor in the corner and the steady rhythm of Alex's breathing. Sleep begins to take over, each blink slower than the last. "I was thinking," I murmur, the words spilling out lazily as I fight off sleep. Caelum hums, his tone heavy with fatigue. "Would you go out to dinner with me this weekend?" I ask, my voice hesitant and tinged with nervousness. There's something terrifyingly vulnerable about the question, but I force myself to let the words escape. The silence that follows seems to stretch longer than it should, and I turn to look at him, only to realize that Caelum is already asleep. His head is tilted back, his lips slightly parted, and a soft snore escapes his throat. A laugh escapes before I can stop it, muffled by my hand. The scene is so absurdly comical that I give in to exhaustion as well, settling back down next to him. I let sleep take over, deciding that my proposal can wait. When I wake up, my body is completely relaxed on the couch, but I'm alone. Still half asleep, I look around and see Caelum standing by the changing table, his skilled hands changing Alex's diaper with the finesse of a master at his craft. The watch on my wrist tells me that only an hour and a half has passed. "We lost the bet, didn't we?" I comment with a yawn, sitting up and rubbing my eyes. Caelum chuckles as he adjusts Alex's clothes. "This guy's going to own Veridiana before he turns 1 if we keep going like this," he replies, lifting Alex back into the crib. "What was it you wanted to talk about?" I ended up falling asleep. I swallow, the nervousness returning full force. I try to organize my words in my head, but they come out in a jumble of stutters. I was just thinking I stammer, unable to find the courage I need. "If you're not busy, if you'd like to go to dinner with me this weekend?" Caelum stops what he's doing and slowly turns to face me. His green eyes gleam with a mix of surprise and amusement, and there's something mischievous in his smile. "Are you asking me out on a date, Duchess Aria?" Caelum teases with humor. I roll my eyes at his joke but nod, a shy smile tugging at my lips. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Can a duchess do that?" I ask. "She can if the duchess in question is you, of course." Caelum responds with a smile that seems to light up not just the room, but my entire world. There's a softness in his green eyes, a glow that melts me. "I'd love to, Aria." My lips curve into an involuntary smile, and for a moment, the whole world seems to stop. The anticipation for the weekend settles in me like an electric current, coursing through every cell in my body with a quiet excitement. The place Caelum chooses for our first date is simply stunning. It's a gem of Veridiana's architecture, a restaurant with a modern yet classic structure, featuring elegant arches and glass walls that reveal a spectacular view of the kingdom. Our reservation is on the private terrace, an exclusive space where the starry sky feels so close I could almost touch it. Below us, the lights of the kingdom twinkle like thousands of fireflies in a harmonious dance. The cool night air surrounds us, bringing with it the scent of nocturnal flowers that grow in the gardens nearby. Tall, slender candles decorate the table at the center, casting a flickering light that dances on the crystal glasses and polished cutlery. Isn't it usually the person who invites who chooses the restaurant? I joke, trying to hide my admiration for the place as I scan the impeccably designed menu. I have no idea, Caelum replies casually, though there's a playful tone in his voice. He looks up at me with a slightly shy smile. This is my first date ever. My surprise is genuine, and I don't make any effort to hide it. You're kidding, right? I ask, shocked. He shakes his head, his expression calm, but there's something vulnerable in his eyes that makes me want to hold his hand. Being a king has its disadvantages, you know? One of them is that dates, especially with someone like you, are rare. I can't help but smile at the charm in his words. Well, lucky for you, I've had plenty of first dates. I can help you with this one, no problem. I respond, excited. The dinner flows with a calm, sweet rhythm, punctuated by laughter, confessions, and glances that speak louder than words ever could. The wine is smooth, the food delicious, but none of it compares to the company. For the first time in a year and a half, I allow myself to love again. Every smile from Caelum, every gesture, every word he says pulls me closer to a feeling I thought I had lost forever. And that's what happens. I fall for him, simply and magically, as if love had been waiting for the right moment to bloom again. More dates follow. They're filled with moments that make me forget the scars of the past. We walk through the castle gardens under the moonlight, share stories around bonfires, and laugh until dawn at jokes only we understand. Slowly, I give myself completely to his charm, to the love he pours over me so naturally. He kisses me after almost 10 dates. It's sweet, soft, and at the same time full of intensity. Each moment with him is a discovery, as if I'm rediscovering parts of myself that had long been asleep. And, surprisingly, it takes another 25 dates before he finally proposes. I thought this day would never come, Caelum says with almost childlike excitement as his arms wrap around my waist, pulling me closer while we dance beneath the soft glow of candelabras. The day you'd propose to me? I ask, a playful smile tugging at my lips as my fingers caress the back of his neck, feeling the silky texture of his hair between my fingers. No. The day Alex would stop waking up so much in the middle of the night, Caelum jokes, and I smack his shoulder. Idiot. I scold and Caelum laughs. I would have proposed the day Alex was born. I had already picked out our rings back then, Caelum confesses. Really? I ask, surprised, caught off guard by his words. Yes, he admits, his voice full of tenderness. I love you, Aria, and I love our children. All I want is to spend the rest of my life with you. I love you so much, Caelum. More than you can imagine. And I know the twins love you too. Caelum raises his hand, his fingers gently caressing my cheek in a gesture so delicate it makes my heart race. I know I'm not Alex's biological father, but he is my son too. I love him with everything I have and everything I am. Just as I love you eternally, Aria. I can't respond with words because none feel sufficient. Instead, I step closer and let our lips meet. The kiss is deep, laden with promises, love, and a desire that goes beyond the physical. It's a complete surrender, a fusion of souls. In that moment, I know I'm finally fulfilling the promise I made to Alexander. To love again and so much more than I ever thought I could. Loving Caelum isn't just easy, it's inevitable. This book has come to an end. Thank you for listening so far. If you liked it, buy the ebook on Amazon. Share, like, and comment. See you in the next book.